In the vast, shimmering halls of the Zorathian palace, where stars seemed to dance through crystalline walls and the air hummed with the whispers of ancient cosmic winds, Princess Elara knelt before her throne. Her once vibrant form, clad in flowing silks that hugged her curves like a lover's embrace, now trembled with the weight of an unforgiving curse. Her skin, pale as moonlight on fresh snow, glistened with a sheen of desperation, and her pointed ears delicate, elfin things that twitched at the faintest sound drooped in defeat. Long strands of white hair cascaded over her shoulders, tangled and lifeless, as if the very essence of her being was unraveling thread by thread. The curse had struck without mercy, a relic from Zorath's forgotten wars, woven into her bloodline by vengeful ancestors. It drained her life force, turning her immortal grace into fragile mortality. Doctors from across the galaxy, tentacled healers from Velquar, ethereal sages from Lunara had tried everything: serums distilled from neutron stars, rituals invoking black hole energies. Nothing worked. Alara's breaths came shallow, her knees digging into the cold marble floor, as courtiers murmured in hushed tones around her. "The princess fades," one whispered, their voice echoing like a distant supernova. But fate, that capricious architect of the universe, had other plans. Far from the opulent spires of Zorath, in the gritty confines of a Terran scout ship, Jake Harlan hurtled through the void. He was no hero from the old Earth tales, just a rugged pilot with a knack for trouble, his broad shoulders marked by scars from asteroid skirmishes, his dark hair tousled from zero-gravity naps. Jake had been charting unclaimed sectors when Zorathian patrols ambushed him, mistaking his vessel for a spy craft. Now, bound in energy cuffs and dragged into the palace's underbelly, he faced a fate worse than death: interrogation by the Empire's finest torturers. As guards shoved him into a dimly lit chamber, Jake's eyes adjusted to the glow of bioluminescent vines climbing the walls. He smirked, masking his fear with that trademark human bravado. "Nice place you've got here. A bit drafty though. Mind if I turn up the heat?" The alien's tall, slender beings with skin like polished opal ignored his quip, their expressions as inscrutable as deep space. They probed his mind with psychic tendrils, sifting through memories of Earth's blue skies, bustling cities, and endless cups of coffee. But something caught their attention: his biology. Humans, those upstart primates from a backwater planet, carried anomalies in their blood, enzymes forged in the crucible of evolution, resilient against toxins that felled greater species. Word reached the throne room swiftly. Elara, barely conscious, lifted her head as her advisors burst in. "The Terran prisoner," one gasped, "his vital fluids, they might hold the key." Skepticism rippled through the court, but desperation won out. Elara's voice, weak yet commanding, cut through the din. "Bring him to me." Her eyes, a swirling vortex of silver and blue, locked onto the horizon of possibility. Little did she know, this encounter would shatter the foundations of her world. Jake was hauled before her, his wrists still bound, his flight suit torn and stained with engine grease. He stumbled slightly on the polished floor, catching himself with a grunt. Up close, Elara was breathtaking, a vision of otherworldly beauty that made his heart skip. Her gown, translucent in places, revealed the elegant lines of her body, curves that spoke of grace and power intertwined. But her frailty hit him harder. She looked like a star on the verge of collapse, beautiful yet doomed. "Who are you?" she whispered, her voice like wind chimes in a storm. "Jake Harlan, ma'am. Earth Federation scout. And you look like you could use a hand or maybe a pint." He flashed a grin, trying to lighten the mood, but his eyes betrayed concern. The guards tensed, but Elara waved them off. "The curse devours me," she explained, her pointed ears flickering. "Our sciences fail. Yours might succeed." She extended a trembling hand, her skin cool to the touch as she brushed his arm. A spark jumped between them, not just metaphorical, but a literal bioelectric jolt that made Jake's veins hum. He nodded, piecing it together from the fragmented explanations. His blood contained a rare enzyme, evolved from humanity's history of plagues and poisons, capable of neutralizing the curse's necrotic spread. "All right, princess. Let's see what this monkey blood can do." They prepared a ritual chamber, sterile yet adorned with glowing runes. Jake rolled up his sleeve, watching as a Zorathian medic drew a vial of his blood, with a needle that hummed like a tuning fork. As the crimson liquid infused into Elara's veins, the air thickened with anticipation. She gasped, her body arching as the enzyme waged war against the curse. Colors returned to her cheeks, her white hair shimmering with renewed luster. Strength flooded back, her knees straightening as she rose, no longer kneeling in defeat but standing tall, immortal once more. The court erupted in awe, but Elara's gaze fixed on Jake. You've given me eternity," she murmured, stepping closer, her gowned form brushing against him. The scent of starflowers enveloped him, intoxicating. But immortality came with strings. As Elara's power surged, visions assaulted her, glimpses of human resilience, of Earth's unyielding spirit that had conquered worlds without trying. It terrified her advisors. If a mere Terran's blood could rewrite fate, what else could humans unleash? Jake, sensing the shift, felt a pull toward her, a magnetic draw that went beyond savior and saved. Their eyes met, and in that moment, the universe narrowed to just them. Elara reached out, her fingers tracing his jawline, sending shivers down his spine. "Stay," she whispered, her voice laced with newfound vitality. "There's more to this gift than life." Jake swallowed hard, the weight of galaxies pressing in. He had no idea that this act of mercy would entwine their destinies, turning a prisoner into a consort, and a princess into a revolutionary. The stars outside the palace windows twinkled knowingly, as if the cosmos itself was conspiring for what came next. As the infusion completed, Elara's body stabilized, but the changes rippled deeper. Her senses sharpened, colors vivid as nebulae, sounds crisp as cracking ice on distant moons. She turned to Jake, her silver blue eyes gleaming with a mix of gratitude and something fiercer desire, perhaps, born from the intimate exchange of life essence. "You've bound us," she said softly, her hand lingering on his chest, feeling the steady thrum of his human heart. It was unlike the rhythmic pulses of Zorathians, wild and untamed. The court dispersed, leaving them in a private alcove overlooking Zorath's twin moons. Guards posted outside, but the air between Jake and Elara crackled with unspoken tension. He shifted uncomfortably in his cuffs, which a servant finally unlocked at her command. "Free at last," he joked, rubbing his wrists. "Though I gotta say, your hospitality could use some work." Elara smiled, a rare curve of her lips that lit up her face like a supernova. Her gown shifted with her movement, revealing the subtle glow of her skin, now radiant from his gift. She stepped closer, her elfin ears perking up as if attuned to his every breath. "Hospitality? On Zorath we repay debts in full." Her voice dropped, husky with emotion. The curse had isolated her for eons now. Vitality coursed through her, awakening long-dormant yearnings. Jake felt it too, the pull. Back on Earth, he'd chased adrenaline through asteroid belts, but this was different. Intimate. Her touch on his arm sent warmth spreading, like solar flares across his skin. "What kind of repayment we talking?" he asked, his tone light but his eyes darkening with curiosity. She leaned in, her white hair brushing his shoulder, carrying the faint aroma of cosmic dust and exotic blooms. "First, tell me of your world. Humans, you're so fragile, yet unbreakable." As he spoke of Earth's oceans, mountains, and the indomitable spirit that had launched them to the stars, Elara listened raptly. Her fingers traced patterns on his sleeve, innocent at first, then bolder, exploring the contours of his muscles forged from gravity wells and manual labor. The conversation flowed into the night, moons casting silver light through the alcove's viewport. Elara shared tales of Zorath's grandeur, floating cities, telepathic symphonies, but her words wove in hints of loneliness. "I've ruled from afar, cursed to wither. Now I feel alive." Her hand slipped to his, intertwining fingers. The contact was electric, her skin soft yet charged with energy. Jake's pulse quickened. He'd heard stories of alien allure, but this was real. Her body, curvaceous and inviting under the silken fabric, moved with a grace that mesmerized him. "You're not so bad yourself, princess. Kinda makes a guy forget he's a prisoner." She laughed, a melodic sound that echoed softly. "Prisoner no more. Savior perhaps. Lover." The word hung in the air, bold and unapologetic. On Zorath, bonds formed swiftly, especially after life debts. Elara's culture celebrated physical connections as extensions of the soul, and his blood now mingled with hers, creating a link that pulsed with shared vitality. He hesitated, then pulled her closer, his hands on her waist. The gown's fabric was thin, warm from her body heat. Their lips met in a tentative kiss, exploding into passion. Her taste was like stardust, sweet, otherworldly. She pressed against him, her curves molding to his frame, igniting fires that burned away doubts. Hands explored, hers sliding under his shirt to feel the warmth of his skin, his tracing the elegant arch of her back, mindful of her pointed ears that quivered at his touch. As they broke apart, breathless, Elara's eyes sparkled. Your essence, it's intoxicating. She guided him to a plush divan, the alcove's lights dimming to a romantic glow. Clothes shed slowly, revealing her flawless form, pale skin glowing faintly, body a symphony of allure. Jake marveled, his human instincts roaring to life. They tangled in embraces, her moans soft echoes in the vast palace, building a rhythm that bridged worlds. But whispers from the court filtered in, advisors plotting, fearing the human's influence. Elara ignored them, lost in the moment, her immortality now tied to this mortal man. Jake, for his part, felt a surge of protectiveness, his HFY spirit awakening. Humanity didn't just survive, it conquered hearts across the stars. The night deepened, their connection growing, but shadows loomed. What would dawn bring? For now, in each other's arms, they found a universe of their own. As the moons of Zorath dipped lower in the velvet sky, casting elongated shadows across the alcove's viewport, Elara and Jake remained entwined on the divan, their breaths sinking in a rhythm that felt as ancient as the stars themselves. The initial rush of their kiss had evolved into something deeper, a slow-burning exploration that left no corner of curiosity untouched. Elara's fingers, slender and cool like polished marble, trailed down Jake's chest, mapping the ridges of his muscles with a reverence that made his skin tingle. She marveled at the warmth radiating from him, so different from the ethereal chill of her own kind, a heat born from Earth's relentless sun and the fire of human perseverance. You burn like a forge, she whispered against his neck, her lips brushing his pulse point, sending shivers racing through him. The scent of her, that intoxicating blend of starflowers and something indefinably cosmic, filled his senses, making the world beyond the alcove fade into irrelevance. Jake's hands, calloused from years of gripping flight controls and wrestling with malfunctioning engines, slid along the curve of her hip, the silken gown bunching under his touch. It was thin enough to feel like a second skin, revealing the soft give of her body beneath curves that promised both fragility and unyielding strength. He pulled back slightly, just enough to meet her gaze, those silver-blue eyes now darkened with desire, swirling like galaxies in turmoil. Elara, he murmured, his voice roughened by the intensity of the moment, it's happening fast. You sure about this? There was a hint of hesitation in his words, not from doubt, but from the weight of the unknown, the curse broken. Yes, but what new chains might this forge? She smiled, a slow, seductive curve that lit fires in his core. Her pointed ears quivered slightly, attuned to the subtle shifts in his breathing, the quickening of his heart. On Zorath, we do not hesitate when the stars align, she replied, her hand slipping lower, tracing the line of his abdomen with feather-light precision. Your blood flows in me now, Jake. It calls to something wild, something human. The word hung between them, charged with erotic promise, as if naming his origin unlocked forbidden doors. The alcove seemed to pulse with their energy, the bioluminescent vines on the walls glowing brighter in response to her heightened vitality. Elara shifted, straddling him with graceful ease, her white hair cascading like a waterfall of moonlight over her shoulders. The gown parted slightly at the front, offering glimpses of her pale skin, flawless and luminous, as if dusted with stardust. Jake's breath caught, she was a vision, her body a perfect harmony of elegance and allure, full breasts, rising with each breath, hips swaying in a hypnotic rhythm that spoke of ancient dances performed under alien skies. His hands found her waist, pulling her closer until there was no space left between them. The contact was electric, her coolness meeting his heat in a delicious contrast that made them both gasp. God, you're incredible, he groaned, his lips finding the sensitive spot just below her ear, where her pointed tip met soft flesh. She arched into him, a soft moan escaping her lips, a sound like distant thunder rolling through nebulae, raw and unfiltered. Elara's hands explored boldly now, unfastening the remnants of his flight suit with fingers that trembled not from weakness, but from anticipation. The fabric peeled away, revealing the taut planes of his chest, marked by faint scars from old battles, testaments to human resilience that fascinated her. She traced one with her tongue, tasting the salt of his skin, and Jake's control frayed at the edges. What are you doing to me? He whispered, his voice laced with awe and hunger. Showing you eternity, she breathed, her body pressing against his in a way that left no doubt of her intentions. The divan creaked softly under their weight as they moved together, a slow dance of discovery. Her gown slipped from one shoulder, exposing more of her gowned form, the material clinging to her curves like mist on a mountain. Jake's mouth followed the path, kissing along her collarbone, down to the swell of her breast, eliciting shivers that rippled through her like waves in a cosmic sea. But even in this haze of passion, suspense lingered like a shadow at the edge of their bliss. Whispers from the corridors beyond reached them, faintly, guards murmuring about the council's unrest, advisors questioning the Terran's role in the princess's revival. Elara paused, her head tilting as if listening to echoes only she could hear. "They fear you," she said, her voice a sultry murmur against his ear. "You're kind, unpredictable, unbreakable. It excites me." Jake's grip tightened on her hips, pulling her down harder, the friction building tension that coiled like a spring. "Let them fear," he replied, his tone turning possessive, a spark of that AFW fire igniting. "Right now, it's just us." He flipped them gently, positioning himself above her, his body a shield against the unseen threats. Alara's legs wrapped around him, her nails grazing his back in patterns that mimicked the constellations outside. The erotic charge intensified, their movements sinking in a rhythm that built suspense with every touch. Would the door burst open? Would the council intervene? She gasped as his hands ventured lower, exploring the hidden contours beneath her gown, finding warmth where coolness had reigned. "Jake, more," she urged, her voice breaking on the word, eyes half-lidded with pleasure. The air grew thick, heavy with their shared breaths, the scent of arousal mingling with the alcove's ambient glow. He obliged, his touches deliberate, drawing out moans that echoed softly, building layers of sensation that teetered on the edge of overwhelm. Yet, the undercurrent of danger heightened everything. A distant alarm hummed through the palace walls, a routine patrol, perhaps, or something more sinister. Alara's body tensed beneath him, not in fear, but in thrill, her pointed ears flicking toward the sound. "They come closer," she whispered, her lips curving into a wicked smile. "But I won't stop." Her hands guided him, urging deeper connection, the erotic suspense wrapping around them like a nebula's embrace. Jake's mind raced, balancing the ecstasy with vigilance. His human instincts screamed alertness, even as his body surrendered to the moment. He kissed her fiercely, claiming her mouth as if to silence the encroaching world, their tongues dancing in a battle of wills that mirrored the larger cosmic clash. Her curves pressed against him, soft yet demanding, each movement a promise of immortality shared. The gown finally gave way, pooling around them like discarded stardust, leaving her bare and breathtaking skin glowing faintly, body a canvas of alien perfection that invited worship. As their passion crested toward an inevitable peak, the shadows in the alcove seemed to deepen, as if the palace itself held its breath. Alara's cries grew softer, more urgent, her immortality amplifying every sensation, making the erotic dance feel eternal. Jake matched her, his strength a counterpoint to her grace, building suspense in the way he held back, teasing, drawing out the pleasure until it bordered on exquisite torment. But the whispers grew louder, footsteps echoing faintly in the hall outside. Would interruption shatter this fragile utopia? Elara clung to him, her body arching in response, refusing to yield. "Don't stop," she pleaded, her voice a erotic siren call that drowned out the world. In that suspended moment, their connection deepened, a fusion of human fire and alien starlight, teetering on the brink of revelation. The night stretched on, their bodies entwined in a web of desire and danger, each touch laced with the thrill of the unknown. Elara's hands roamed freely now, memorizing the feel of him, the rough texture of his stubble, the firm lines of his thighs, as if committing him to eternal memory. Jake responded in kind, his lips trailing fire across her skin, from the elegant arch of her neck to the sensitive tips of her ears, which quivered under his breath like leaves in a solar wind. Suspense built not just from the external threats, but from the internal storm they unleashed. Every caress promised more, every whisper hinted at secrets yet to be shared. "Tell me," she gasped between kisses, her legs tightening around him, "what makes humans so addictive?" Her question hung in the air, erotic and probing, as her body moved against his in ways that blurred the line between question and invitation. "It's our heart," he growled, thrusting gently, eliciting a sharp intake of breath from her. "We fight, we love, we don't give up." The words fueled their rhythm, turning the alcove into a sanctuary of suspenseful ecstasy. Alara's white hair fanned out beneath her, a halo of purity contrasted by the raw passion in her eyes. Her curves yielded and demanded in equal measure, creating a dance that was as much battle as it was surrender. As the first hints of dawn filtered through the viewport, painting their skin in hues of pink and gold, the erotic tension reached a fever pitch. Whispers outside turned to voices, council members approaching, their tones urgent. Elara's body trembled not from fear, but from the precipice they balanced on. Now, she urged, her voice a husky command, pulling him deeper into the vortex of their shared world. In that erotic suspense, they teetered, the universe holding its breath, waiting for the storm to break. As the first rays of Zorath's dual suns pierced the alcove's viewport, bathing Elara and Jake in a warm, ethereal light that danced across their sweat-glistened skin, the voices outside swelled from murmurs to insistent demands. Elara's body, still locked in the throes of their passionate union, tensed beneath him, her silver-blue eyes snapping open wide with a mix of ecstasy and alarm. "They're here," she gasped, her voice a breathless thread woven into the fabric of their intimacy. But she didn't pull away. Instead, her hips arched one final time, drawing him deeper in a defiant surge that sent waves of pleasure crashing through them both, a climax of bodies and wills colliding just as the world intruded. The door to the alcove burst open with a resonant boom, like the crack of a meteor striking atmosphere, and in stormed a cadre of Zorathian elites advisors in flowing robes embroidered with glowing runes, flanked by armored guards whose energy lances hummed with lethal potential. At their forefront was High Chancellor Vexar, a towering figure with skin like burnished sapphire and eyes that burned with the cold fire of betrayal. "Princess," he thundered, his voice echoing through the chamber, dramatic and laced with feigned horror. "What abomination is this? Consorting with the Terran vermin who poisons our bloodline?" Jake's instincts kicked in like a hyperdrive, igniting human reflexes, honed from bar brawls on Mars outposts and evasive maneuvers through asteroid fields. He rolled off Elara in a fluid motion, shielding her with his body as he snatched up his discarded flight suit, using it as a makeshift barrier while his mind raced. The thrill of the moment surged through his veins, adrenaline mixing with the afterglow, turning fear into a sharpened edge. Elara, her immortality pulsing strong now, rose beside him, her gown hastily rearranged but still askew, revealing the flushed glow of her pale skin and the wild cascade of her white hair. Her pointed ears stood erect, quivering with fury rather than desire, and she stepped forward, her curvaceous form radiating authority that made the intruders falter. "You dare interrupt your sovereign?" Elara's voice boomed, dramatic and queenly, the enzyme from Jake's blood amplifying her presence into something godlike. The room crackled with tension, the air thick with the scent of their recent passion and the ozone tang of impending violence. Vexar sneered, his advisors whispering curiously behind him, their eyes darting to Jake with a mix of disgust and intrigue. What secrets did this human hold that could revive their princess so profoundly? But the Chancellor wasn't one to back down. "The Council has convened," he declared, his tone thrilling in its menace, gesturing with a clawed hand toward Jake. "This creature's fluid may have broken the curse, but at what cost? Scans show anomalies, human DNA rewriting our sacred lineage. He must be dissected, studied, eliminated before he corrupts the Empire further." The guards advanced, lances lowering, their tips glowing with plasma that could vaporize flesh in an instant. Jake's heart pounded, the climax of their night twisting into a life-or-death standoff. "Elara, get behind me," he growled, his voice low and thrilling, but she laughed, a surprising melodic peal that cut through the drama like a laser. "No, my love," she countered, her hand grasping his, the connection sending a jolt of shared energy that made his skin buzz. In that instant, curiosity bloomed in Jake's mind. What had his blood truly done to her? She raised her free hand, and a surge of power erupted from her palm, a force field of shimmering light that slammed into the guards, hurling them back against the walls with bone-jarring force. The room erupted into chaos. Vexar bellowed orders, his advisors scrambling for cover as alarms wailed through the palace, red lights flashing like arterial blood. "Treason! The princess is compromised," he roared, drawing a concealed dagger that hummed with vibrational energy. Jake dodged a wild swing from a recovering guard, his fist connecting with the alien's jaw in a satisfying crunch, human brawn against Zorathian tech, a thrilling mismatch that favored the underdog. He grabbed a fallen lance, its weight unfamiliar but instinctive in his grip, parrying another attack with a spark of plasma that lit the alcove like fireworks. Elara moved like a storm incarnate, her body a blur of grace and power, her curves accentuated by the fluid motion of combat, gown swirling around her like a cape of stardust. She leaped onto a table, her pointed ears slicing through the air, and unleashed another wave of energy, this time targeted at Vexar. "You plotted this curse all along, didn't you?" she accused, her voice dramatic and piercing, revealing a surprising twist that hung in the air like a suspended star. The Chancellor's eyes widened in shock. How did she know? The enzyme hadn't just healed her, it had unlocked latent psychic abilities, granting visions of treachery buried in the Empire's shadows. Vexar lunged, his dagger aimed at her heart, but Jake intercepted, tackling the Chancellor with a football charge that sent them both crashing through a viewport panel. Glass shattered in a thrilling cascade, shards glittering like falling stars as they tumbled into an adjacent corridor. Pain flared in Jake's shoulder from a grazing cut, but he pressed on, pinning Vexar with a knee to the chest. "You mess with her, you mess with me," he snarled, the human spirit shining through in raw, unfiltered defiance. Back in the alcove, Elara dispatched the last guard with a telekinetic shove, her breath coming in excited gasps, eyes alight with curiosity about her new powers. "Jake," she called, rushing to the breach, her white hair whipping in the wind from the palace's ventilation systems. But as she reached him, a deeper rumble shook the foundations, the palace defenses activating, turrets whirring to life outside. Vexar, bloodied but unbowed, laughed maniacally. "You fools, the Empire's fleet mobilizes. Your human taint ends here." The thrill intensified as klaxons blared, red alerts painting the corridors in ominous hues. Jake hauled Vexar up by the collar, demanding answers. "Why curse her? What do you gain?" The Chancellor's response was a surprising whisper, his sapphire skin paling to claim the throne and sell Zorath to the Velquar Syndicate. "Your blood? It ruins everything." The revelation hit like a supernova betrayal from within, a web of intrigue spanning galaxies. Elara's hand found Jake's again, pulling him away as more guards poured in from distant halls. "We must flee to the archives," she urged, her voice laced with dramatic urgency. "There lies proof and a ship to escape." They ran, hand in hand, through twisting corridors alive with pursuit, laser bolts sizzling past them in thrilling near misses. Jake's mind whirled with curiosity. What other surprises did her enhanced form hold? Her body, still flushed from their earlier intimacy, moved with superhuman agility, leaping over barriers with ease, her curvaceous silhouette a beacon in the chaos. A dramatic chase ensued, the palace transforming into a labyrinth of danger. They burst into a grand hall lined with holographic displays of Zorath's history, where automated sentries activated drone spheres whirring with scanning beams and stun projectiles. Jake fired the stolen lance, blasting one out of the air in a shower of sparks, while Elara deflected others with her newfound force fields, her pointed ears attuned to their mechanical hums. "This way," she cried, leading him to a hidden panel that slid open at her touch, revealing a spiral staircase descending into the underbelly of the palace. But as they descended, a surprising ambush awaited Vexar, having escaped Jake's grasp in the melee, teleported ahead using a concealed device, blocking their path with a squad of elite warriors. "You cannot run from destiny," he intoned, his voice echoing dramatically in the confined space. The climax built to a fever pitched Jake and Elara back to back, outnumbered, her powers flickering under strain, his human grit the only wildcard. In a thrilling surge, Jake charged, using the environment to his advantage, yanking a loose conduit to unleash a spray of coolant that blinded two warriors, then wrestling a third to the ground with brute force. Elara amplified his efforts, her energy blasts precise and devastating, but curiosity gnawed at her. Why did touching Jake recharge her so quickly? Their brief contact mid-fight sent sparks flying, literally, as her abilities surged anew. Vexar closed in, his dagger vibrating with lethal intent, aiming for Jake's throat. "Die, Terran scum." But Elara intervened with a surprising twist. She channeled her power through Jake, using their bond to turn him into a conduit. Energy coursed through him, harmless to his human physiology but amplified, blasting Vexar back in a dramatic arc that ended with the Chancellor crumpling against the wall, unconscious. Panting, they stood victorious for the moment, the air humming with residual energy. Elara turned to Jake, her eyes wide with thrilling wonder. Our connection, it's more than I imagined. She pulled him into a fierce kiss, passionate and brief, sealing the climax with a promise of more revelations. But the palace shook again, reinforcements inbound, the Empire's might bearing down. They pressed on, deeper into the archives, where ancient secrets awaited, curiosity driving them forward amidst the suspense. What would they uncover? How far would this bond take them? The stars outside seemed to pulse in rhythm with their hearts, hinting at a universe forever changed. The archives loomed before them, a vast chamber filled with crystalline data orbs floating in anti-grav fields, each containing eons of Zorathian knowledge. As they entered, sealing the door behind them with a hasty energy lock, the thrill of escape gave way to a curious hush. Elara's hand lingered on Jake's arm, her touch a reminder of their intimacy, now layered with the drama of survival. "Here," she whispered, her voice still husky from exertion, "we find the truth." But as they delved into the orbs, activating holographic projections that danced like ghosts in the dim light, a surprising discovery unfolded, one that would redefine everything. As holographic tendrils unfurled from the crystalline orbs, weaving intricate patterns of light that illuminated forgotten histories, Elara and Jake stood transfixed, the drama of their escape morphing into a palpable tension that hung in the air like charged plasma. The projections revealed schematics of ancient pacts, star maps dotted with betrayal markers, and most shockingly a lineage tree that branched into shadows, showing Vexar's bloodline intertwined with off-world syndicates. Elara's fingers tightened on Jake's arm, her pointed ears flattening slightly in distress. As the truth crystallized, the Chancellor hadn't just cursed her, he'd engineered a coup backed by Velquar mercenaries, aiming to auction Zorath's resources to the highest bidder. This is the end of everything I knew," she murmured, her voice cracking with heightened emotion, silver blue eyes brimming with a storm of rage and sorrow. Jake, ever the grounded human, pulled her closer, his hand sliding to the small of her back where her gown still clung haphazardly from their earlier tumult. "Hey, it's not the end, it's a plot twist. And humans? We're pros at those. Remember the Alamo? Or that time we turned a moon landing into a golf outing?" He flashed a grin, injecting a dash of humor to cut through the drama, but it landed awkwardly, his Earth references sailing over her head like a misfired rocket. Elara blinked, tilting her head curiously, her curvaceous form shifting against him in a way that was both comforting and distractingly intimate. "Alamo? Is that a Zorathian ritual?" she asked, her tone mixing genuine confusion with the weight of the revelations, creating an awkward pause where the holograms flickered mockingly around them. He chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck, feeling the heat rise in his cheeks not from embarrassment alone, but from the way her proximity stirred memories of their alcove passion, now clashing absurdly with the empire-shattering secrets unfolding. "Nah, just an old Earth story about underdogs fighting back. Point is, we've got proof now. Let's download this and blow the whistle." But as he reached for a data orb, alarms blared anew, red lights pulsing through the chamber like an angry heartbeat. The door they'd sealed groaned under assault, dents appearing from the other side as Vexar's reinforcements hammered away with breaching tools. Drama escalated in waves, the orbs hummed louder, as if protesting the intrusion, and Elara's new powers flared instinctively, erecting a shimmering barrier that bought them precious seconds. "They're breaking through," she exclaimed, her white hair whipping as she spun to face the entrance, body poised in a dramatic stance that accentuated her elegant curves, gown tearing slightly at the seam from the earlier fight, adding an unintended layer of vulnerability that made Jake's protective instincts surge. He grabbed a nearby pedestal, yanking it free to use as a makeshift barricade, his muscles straining under the anti-grav field's pull. "Great, just what we needed, a siege in a library. Because nothing says romantic getaway like dodging lasers in your undies." His quip drew a surprised laugh from Elara, lightening the moment amid the chaos, but it was awkward too, her alien sensibilities clashing with his sarcasm. She glanced down at her disheveled attire, a faint blush tinting her pale skin, and quipped back, "On Zorath, we call this battle chic. Though I admit, your human undergarments are curiously minimal." The banter hung awkwardly sweet between them, a brief respite as the door buckled further, sparks flying like fireworks at a doomed party. Jake's mind raced, piecing together a plan while stealing glances at her body, glowing faintly with immortal energy, moved with a grace that turned even desperation into art. But the drama heightened when the first breach appeared, a fist-sized hole blasting through, followed by a probing tentacle from a Velquar ally, slimy and probing the air like a nightmare from Earth's deep-sea horrors. "What in the?" Jake yelped, swatting at it with the pedestal, the appendage retracting with a squelch that was equal parts gross and hilarious. "Okay, that's just rude. No one invited the squid squad." Elara stifled a giggle, her pointed ears perking up despite the peril, but she channeled her focus, blasting the hole with a kinetic wave that sealed it temporarily in a crust of fused metal. "They're not just guards," Vexar called in the syndicate. "If they capture us," her voice trailed off, the implication dramatic and heavy dissection for him, reprogramming for her, the Empire fractured beyond repair. The awkwardness deepened as Jake tripped over a floating orb in his haste, landing on his backside with a thud, the data device clattering beside him. "Smooth Harlan," he muttered to himself, scrambling up while Elara extended a hand, her touch sending that familiar spark through him. Their eyes met in the midst of the turmoil, a charged moment where humor and desire flickered her curvaceous silhouette backlit by holographic glows, making her look like a goddess in distress. But there was no time for lingering. The barrier shimmered under renewed assault, cracks spiderwebbing across its surface. Jake uploaded the incriminating files to his wristcom, a Terran gadget that miraculously survived the chaos, its beeps comically out of place amid the symphony of destruction. "Got it. Now, Princess, any secret exits in this nerd paradise?" Elara nodded, her face alight with determination, but as she waved her hand to reveal a hidden panel, it jammed halfway stuck from disuse, forcing her to wedge her body against it, gown hiking up awkwardly to reveal the smooth expanse of her thigh. Jake averted his eyes at first, then couldn't help but stare, the situation turning dramatically tense yet laced with humor. Need a hand. Or a foot. Maybe a whole human," he joked, pushing alongside her, their bodies pressing close in the confined space, breaths mingling in a way that echoed their earlier intimacy. With a groan, the panel gave way, revealing a narrow tunnel lined with glowing fungi that pulsed like emergency lights. They squeezed in, Elara first, her form navigating the tight confines with elfin agility, while Jake followed, bumping his head on low ceilings and muttering curses that drew soft laughter from ahead. "Humans are so vocal," she teased over her shoulder, the awkward shimmy through the passage heightening the drama echoes of pursuit reverberating behind them, the tunnel vibrating from blasts. "Yeah, well, we're also persistent," he shot back, his hand accidentally brushing her hip in the darkness, sending a jolt that made them both pause, hearts racing not just from fear. The tunnel twisted downward, drama building with each step as distant explosions rocked the palace above. Elara's powers lit the way, her skin emanating a soft luminescence that cast intimate shadows, turning the escape into a surreal dance. But awkwardness struck again when the path narrowed further, forcing them chest to chest in a bottleneck. "This is intimate," Jake quipped, his voice husky, face inches from hers, the heat between them clashing with the cool fungal walls. She smirked, her silver blue eyes twinkling. "For a Zorathian, this is merely efficient. For you." Her hand grazed his chest playfully, adding humor to the charged air. They pushed through, emerging into a subterranean hangar where sleek shuttles hummed in stasis fields. But the drama peaked as Vexar's voice crackled over hidden speakers. "You cannot hide, Elara. The fleet surrounds the palace. Surrender the Terran, or watch Zorath burn." The announcement sent chills, heightening the stakes, but Jake spotted a scout ship, his own, confiscated and stored here. "Jackpot, my baby," he exclaimed, rushing to it with boyish glee that cut through the tension like a laser scalpel. Elara followed, but as they boarded, an awkward hitch. The cockpit was designed for one, forcing her to perch on his lap amid the controls. "This is undignified for royalty," she protested lightly, her body settling against him in a way that stirred awkward yet thrilling memories. "Hey, think of it as first-class seating with a view," Jake replied with a wink, firing up the engines as the hangar doors blasted open from pursuers. Thrusters ignited, propelling them into the undercity tunnels, lasers streaking past in near misses that had them ducking instinctively. Elara's laughter bubbled up, surprising and infectious. "Humans make even doom fun." The ship weaved through caverns, drama unfolding in high-speed chases, stalactites crumbling behind them, Velquar drones swarming like angry bees. Jake pulled evasive maneuvers, his hands steady on the yoke, while Elara amplified the shields with her powers, their bond turning the cockpit into a nexus of energy. But a stray hit grazed the hull, sparking a fire in the rear compartment. "Oh, come on!" Jake groaned, the awkward humor peaking as he fumbled for an extinguisher while keeping them airborne. Elara doused it with a kinetic burst, but not before smoke filled the cabin, making them cough and wave hands comically. "Next time we take the limo," he joked, eyes watering. They burst into open sky, the palace a blazing silhouette below, fleet ships vectoring in. Drama crested as Elara broadcast the evidence empire-wide from the ship's comms, her voice resolute: "People of Zorath, see the truth, Vexar betrays us." Gasps echoed through channels, alliances shifting in real time. Yet pursuit intensified, a capital ship looming with tractor beams engaging. Jake dodged, but the awkward truth hit: fuel was low from the impound. "We're running on fumes literally?" he admitted with a sheepish grin. Elara placed her hand on his, channeling energy into the systems, a surprising fusion that supercharged the engines, propelling them toward hyperspace. As stars blurred, the hangar drama faded, but new awkward situations loomed, stranded in the void, bound together, with an empire in upheaval. Humor lingered in Jake's quips, lightening the load, as they plotted their next move: a rally point on a neutral moon, where allies might gather. The ship hummed onward, their connection deeper, the universe vast and unpredictable. What awkward alliances awaited? How would humor shield them from the gathering storm? As hyperspace enveloped the scout ship in a cocoon of streaking stars, the immediate roar of pursuit faded into a distant hum, leaving Elara and Jake in a fragile bubble of reprieve. The cockpit, cramped and alive with the soft beeps of stabilizing systems, felt like a sanctuary amid the chaos they'd fled. Elara shifted on Jake's lap, her body still pressed close from the necessity of the single-seat design, but now the contact lingered with intentional warmth. Her white hair draped over his shoulder like a silken veil, and her pointed ears brushed his cheek as she turned to face him, silver blue eyes reflecting the warp lights in a mesmerizing swirl. "We did it," she whispered, her voice a gentle caress against the engine's low thrum, her hand resting on his chest where she could feel the steady beat of his heart, a rhythm that grounded her newfound immortality. Jake's arms encircled her waist, holding her steady as the ship stabilized, but his touch evolved from protective to tender, fingers tracing slow circles along the curve of her back through the torn remnants of her gown. The adrenaline from the escape coursed through them both, heightening every sensation, turning the confines of the cockpit into an intimate haven. "Yeah, we make a hell of a team," he replied, his breath warm against her neck, a soft smile playing on his lips as he met her gaze. The bond they'd forged first through his blood, then through shared peril pulsed stronger now, an invisible thread that drew them closer, amplifying emotions and desires that had simmered since their first encounter in the alcove. Elara leaned in, her lips finding his in a kiss that started soft, a gentle exploration born from relief, but quickly deepened with the passion they'd barely contained during the chase. Her body molded against him, curves fitting perfectly to the contours of his frame, as if the universe had designed them for this very moment. The gown, already disheveled from battle, slipped further, revealing the smooth expanse of her pale skin that glowed faintly with the energy she'd drawn from him. Jake's hands roamed upward, cupping her face at first, then sliding down to her shoulders, pushing the fabric aside with care, exposing more of her elegant form. She sighed into the kiss, a sound of contentment and yearning intertwined, her pointed ears quivering as his fingers brushed their sensitive tips, a touch that sent delightful shivers cascading through her. The ship's autopilot engaged with a confirming chime, freeing them from the immediate demands of navigation, and Jake reclined the seat slightly, creating just enough space for her to adjust. Elara straddled him more comfortably, her thighs pressing against his, the warmth between them building like a slow-burning star. "Your touch, it awakens parts of me I never knew," she murmured, her voice husky with emotion, as she trailed kisses along his jawline, down to the pulse at his throat. Jake's breath hitched, his hands exploring the graceful arch of her back, fingers dipping lower to trace the swell of her hips, feeling the softness that contrasted so beautifully with her immortal strength. In this stolen interlude, amidst the vastness of space, their connection blossomed into something profound and sensual. Elara's hands worked at the fastenings of his flight suit, peeling it open with deliberate slowness, revealing the firm planes of his chest and the scars that told stories of human endurance. She marveled at them, her lips following her fingers, planting soft kisses that made him groan softly, the sound vibrating through her. "You're so alive," she whispered, her body arching into his touch as he reciprocated, his palms gliding over her skin, cupping the fullness of her form with reverence. The intimacy unfolded naturally, a dance of discovery where every caress built upon the last, their breaths mingling in shared rhythm. Jake pulled her closer, their bodies aligning in perfect harmony, the friction igniting sparks that mirrored the hyperspace lights outside. Elara's white hair cascaded around them like a curtain, enclosing them in their own world, as she moved with graceful intent, guiding him into a union that felt as eternal as the stars. Sensations enveloped them, warmth enveloping warmth, a gentle merging that amplified their bond, sending waves of pleasure rippling through. Her moans were soft melodies, echoing the ship's hum, while his responses were deeper, grounding, a testament to the fire within humanity. They moved together, slow at first, savoring the connection, then with increasing fervor, each motion drawing them deeper into ecstasy. The cockpit's dim lights cast intimate shadows, highlighting the elegant lines of Elara's body, her curvaceous silhouette swaying in rhythm, pointed ears flicking with every heightened feeling. Jake's hands gripped her hips, steadying yet encouraging, as they lost themselves in the moment, the earlier drama of betrayal and escape transforming into fuel for this passionate release. "Elara," he breathed, his voice laced with awe, as she leaned back slightly, her eyes locking onto his, silver-blue depths swirling with emotion. The energy between them surged, her immortality drawing from his vitality, creating a loop of shared bliss that made every touch electric, every whisper profound. Time seemed to stretch in hyperspace, allowing them to explore without rush, bodies entwined in a symphony of tenderness and desire. Elara's skin flushed with a soft glow, responding to his caresses, while Jake felt invigorated, as if her essence replenished him in return. They whispered endearments, promises of forever, confessions of how this bond had changed them, interspersed with gasps of delight. The intimacy peaked in waves, building to a crescendo where they clung to each other, riding the heights of sensation together, until release washed over them like a cosmic tide, leaving them breathless and intertwined. In the afterglow, Elara rested her head on his shoulder, her white hair tickling his skin, as their breathing slowed in unison. The ship's systems beeped softly, a reminder of their journey, but for now, the universe narrowed to just them, two souls from different worlds, united in a love that defied galaxies. Jake stroked her back gently, fingers tracing lazy patterns, while she nuzzled closer, her pointed ears relaxing against him. It's more than survival," she said softly, her voice filled with wonder. "It's what makes eternity worth living." The hyperspace tunnel hummed onward, carrying them toward the neutral moon, but the intimacy they'd shared lingered, strengthening their resolve. Whispers of doubt from the Empire's upheaval faded in the warmth of their embrace, replaced by a quiet certainty that together, they could face whatever storms awaited. Elara lifted her head, planting a lingering kiss on his lips, her body still close, curves nestled against him in comfortable familiarity. "Rest now, my love," she murmured, though her eyes sparkled with lingering desire. "The moon approaches, and with it, new allies." Jake nodded, his arms secure around her, but as the ship began to decelerate, a subtle vibration stirred not from engines, but from within her. The bond, amplified by their closeness, hummed with untapped potential, hinting at powers yet to unfold. They dressed slowly, hands brushing in accidental caresses that reignited sparks, turning the mundane into moments of connection. Elara's gown, mended haphazardly with ship tape, clung to her form, accentuating her allure, while Jake's suit bore the marks of their adventure, a badge of their shared trials. As the neutral moon loomed on the viewscreen, a cratered orb bathed in ethereal light, the cockpit filled with anticipation. Scans showed friendly signals, dissident Zorathians and Terran contacts rallying to their broadcast. But beneath the hope, a thread of intimacy wove through, reminding them that their strength lay not just in evidence or powers, but in the profound union they'd discovered. Elara's hand found Jake's once more, fingers intertwining as they prepared to dock. The moon's surface rushed up to meet them, docking clamps engaging with a gentle thud. As the hatch opened to reveal waiting figures loyalists with hopeful eyes, Elara and Jake stepped out together, bodies brushing in a subtle reminder of their private world. The intimacy lingered in their glances, a secret fuel for the battles ahead, turning strangers into lovers and lovers into legends. Yet, as greetings flowed and plans unfolded in the moon's underground base, a subtle awkwardness emerged when a Zorathian medic scanned Elara, noting the enhanced enzyme levels. "Your Highness, this fusion it's unprecedented," the medic said, eyes widening. Jake coughed lightly, shifting, but Elara smiled serenely, her hand squeezing his. The group moved to strategy rooms, but the undercurrent of their bond pulsed, ready to ignite again when solitude returned. For now, they focused on the fight, but the memory of their hyperspace haven sustained them, a beacon of passion in the cold void. As the strategy room's holographic maps flickered to life, casting ethereal blues and greens across the faces of the gathered dissidents, Zorathian loyalists with determined gazes and a handful of Terran operatives who'd heeded the broadcast, Elara and Jake, took their places at the central console, their hands brushing in a subtle affirmation of the bond that had carried them this far. The medic's words still echoed faintly, that comment about the unprecedented fusion, lingering like an unspoken question, but the urgency of planning pushed it aside for now. Allies murmured approvals as Elara outlined the evidence against Vexar, her voice steady and commanding, her curvaceous form silhouetted against the projections like a beacon of renewed hope. Jake added his human perspective, cracking light quips about kicking syndicate butt that drew chuckles, easing the tension in the underground base carved into the moon's rocky core. The room buzzed with strategy pinpointing weak points in the Zorathian fleet, rallying hidden cells across the Empire, and coordinating a strike to expose the Chancellor's treachery before he could consolidate power. Elara's pointed ears twitched at every suggestion, her white hair tied back in a practical braid that still managed to cascade elegantly, while Jake leaned on the console, his flight suit patched with makeshift repairs, feeling the subtle hum of her energy whenever she stood close. "If we hit the communication hubs first," he proposed, zooming in on a star map, "we cut off their propaganda machine. Humans call it going viral, but the good kind." The group nodded, plans solidifying, but beneath the camaraderie, Elara felt a strange pull, a whisper in her veins that she attributed to the lingering effects of their intimate connection in hyperspace. Hours blurred into a focused haze, the base's dim lighting and recycled air creating an intimate cocoon for their war council. Breaks came sparingly, during which Elara and Jake stole moments in a side alcove, her body leaning into his for quiet reassurance, lips meeting in brief, tender kisses that reignited the spark without words. "We're winning this," he murmured against her skin, his hands on her waist, feeling the soft give of her curves through the borrowed tunic she'd donned over her gown remnants. She smiled, her silver blue eyes softening, but that internal whisper grew a faint itch, like static in her blood, dismissed as fatigue from wielding her enhanced powers. As night cycles simulated on the moon base, the group dispersed for rest, leaving Elara and Jake in a private quarters module, a Spartan room with a viewport overlooking the cratered landscape. The door sealed with a soft hiss, and she turned to him, shedding the tunic to reveal the familiar lines of her body, pale skin glowing under the low lights. "Come here," she invited, her voice a sultry invitation, pulling him onto the narrow bunk where they tangled once more, bodies reconnecting in a rhythm that felt as natural as breathing. Her moans were softer here, muffled against his shoulder, as they moved together, exploring the depths of their bond, his human warmth enveloping her cool grace, hands tracing paths that elicited shivers and sighs. The intimacy was a balm, strengthening them, but midway through, that whisper in her veins sharpened into a pang, a brief flash of something foreign that made her gasp not just from pleasure. Jake paused, concern etching his features as he held her close, their bodies still joined in the afterglow. "You okay?" That didn't sound like the good kind of gasp. She nodded, brushing it off with a kiss, her pointed ears folding slightly in reassurance. "Just echoes of the curse, perhaps. Or your essence settling deeper." They lay entwined, her head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat, while outside, the moon's silence held vigil, but sleep eluded her, the pang returned, evolving into visions, flashes of memories not her own, Earth's green fields, Jake's childhood laughter, a sense of boundless curiosity. She smiled at first, attributing it to their fusion, but then the visions darkened, pulling at threads she hadn't noticed before. By the simulated dawn, as they rejoined the council for final preparations, the twist began to uncoil subtly at first. Elara accessed the base's medical scanner on a whim, her hand trembling slightly as she input parameters, Jake by her side offering support. The results materialized in holographic detail, and her silver-blue eyes widened, the room's chatter fading into a distant roar. "This can't be," she whispered, her voice cracking with a mix of awe and horror. The scan revealed not just the enzyme's integration, but a profound alteration. Jake's blood hadn't merely healed her, it had initiated a symbiotic link, one that was rewriting her DNA in real time, granting her human traits like emotional resilience and adaptability, but at a cost. The curse, it turned out, had been a genetic lock, designed not by Vexar alone, but as part of an ancient Zorathian failsafe to prevent hybridization with lesser species. But the powerful twist struck like a supernova when the deeper layers unpacked the enzyme was evolving her. Yes, but it was also drawing from Jake's life force subtly, extending her immortality while potentially shortening his mortal span. No, that wasn't the surprise. As the holograms delved further, a hidden protocol activated, revealing classified archives synced from the palace data they'd stolen. Elara's lineage wasn't pure Zorathian. Her ancestors had engineered the royal bloodline with Terran DNA stolen from early human abductions, millennia ago, to bolster their weakening empire. She was part human, dormant genes awakened by Jake's transfusion, explaining the seamless bond, her attraction to him, and the surge in powers. "I'm like you," she breathed, turning to Jake with eyes brimming, the revelation hanging heavy. The room fell silent as allies overheard, gasps rippling through. Jake stared, the surprise hitting him like a warp jump, his rugged features paling, then breaking into a stunned laugh. "Wait, you're saying the Princess of the Stars has Earth blood? That we're related in some cosmic way?" But the drama deepened, the twist wasn't just heritage. The archives exposed that Vexar knew this secret, using the curse to suppress her human side, fearing it would democratize power, making Zorathians less elitist and more human. By breaking it, Jake hadn't just saved her, he'd ignited a genetic revolution, potentially granting all Zorathians access to this hybrid vigor if the enzyme spread. Elara collapsed into his arms, her body trembling not from weakness, but from the weight of identity shattered and reformed. "All this time I thought humans were the outsiders. But you're the key to our salvation, and I'm the bridge." The surprise rippled outward, allies murmured in shock, some viewing it as blasphemy, others as hope. But for Jake, the twist personalized, his blood wasn't random, it resonated because of that ancient link, making their love not chance, but destiny woven across eons. Chaos ensued as the base's alarms suddenly wailed, not from external attack, but internal dissent. A faction of purist Zorathians, horrified by the revelation, turned coats, sealing sections and demanding Elara's quarantine. "Hybrid abomination," one shouted, energy weapons powering up in a dramatic standoff. Jake shielded her, grabbing a nearby tool as a makeshift club, his human grit flaring. "Touch her, and you'll see what real human fire looks like." The room erupted into skirmishes, loyalists clashing with turncoats, holographic maps shattering in crossfire. Elara, empowered by the twist's awakening, unleashed her full potential, force waves amplified by her newly activated human intuition, disarming foes with precision. "We fight for truth," she declared, her voice booming, white hair flowing like a banner. Jake joined the fray, dodging blasts and tackling a purist, his punches landing with satisfying thuds. The battle was thrilling, close-quarters chaos in the confined base, sparks flying from overloaded consoles, the air thick with ozone and determination. They subdued the dissenters, binding them as the loyalists regrouped, but the twist's surprise lingered, reshaping alliances. Elara turned to Jake amid the debris, her curvaceous form heaving with exertion, and pulled him into a fierce embrace. "This changes everything," she said, her pointed ears erect with resolve. "But it doesn't change us." He nodded, the revelation surprising yet binding them closer, humanity's indomitable spirit now pulsing in her veins. With the base secured, they broadcast the full truth empire-wide, the twist galvanizing support Zorathians awakening to their hidden heritage, fleets defecting en masse. Vexar's forces faltered, the syndicate retreating in confusion. But shadows loomed, If Elara was hybrid, what other secrets hid in the stars? The surprise had upended the galaxy, turning a personal bond into a universal catalyst. As they prepared for the final pushback to Zorath, Elara felt another vision, Jake's future intertwined with hers, immortality perhaps shared if they unlocked more. The twist surprised even her, hinting at greater powers. Hand in hand, they stepped toward the shuttles, the moon's craters watching silently, as the story of human and alien blurred into one. Yet, in the quiet moments, the surprise settled love wasn't just passion, it was evolution, surprising and inevitable. As the shuttles hummed to life on the moon's dusty landing pads, their engines casting long shadows across the craters under the harsh vacuum light, Elara and Jake strode forward, their fingers laced in a grip that spoke volumes of the revelations still echoing in their minds. The surprise of her hybrid heritage had settled like a new gravity, pulling them closer, but it also amplified the stakes. Every glance between them now carried the weight of eons, a blend of human tenacity and Zorathian legacy that promised either triumph or catastrophe. Allies boarded around them, a ragtag fleet of defected ships lifting off in synchronized bursts, heading back to reclaim Zorath from Vexar's crumbling grasp. Elara's visions lingered, teasing glimpses of shared immortality, but as they settled into the lead shuttle's command deck, drama began to brew anew, the air thick with the scent of recycled oxygen and unresolved tension. The fleet jumped to hyperspace in a coordinated flash, stars streaking past the viewports like accusatory fingers, and Elara leaned over the tactical display, her curvaceous silhouette outlined against the glowing screens. Her white hair, still braided from the base, framed her face in a way that made Jake's heart skip. Elegant, fierce, utterly captivating. But as she plotted intercept courses, a subtle awkwardness crept in, her pointed ears twitched erratically, picking up subspace chatter that no one else could hear, a side effect of her awakened genes. "Incoming transmissions," she announced, her voice steady but laced with an undercurrent of strain. Jake sidled up beside her, his hand brushing her hip in what he meant as support, but the touch lingered a beat too long, drawing curious glances from the bridge crew, a mix of Zorathians and Terrans, who suddenly found the navigation charts fascinating. Princess Elara," Jake corrected himself with a grin, trying to play it cool, but his human casualness clashed hilariously with the formal bridge etiquette. "You hearing ghosts or something? Because if it's my grandma calling from beyond, tell her I still owe her for that birthday card." The quip landed with mixed results. A few Terrans chuckled, but the Zorathians exchanged puzzled looks, one whispering, "What is a grandma in this context? A spectral entity?" Elara shot him a sidelong glance, her silver blue eyes sparkling with amusement amid the rising drama. But she couldn't suppress a soft laugh, her body relaxing against his for a moment. "Your humor is timely if baffling," she replied, her hand covering his briefly, the contact sending that familiar spark, but now amplified, making her cheeks flush faintly, a very human reaction that caught her off guard. The awkwardness escalated when the subspace chatter clarified into urgent hails. Vexar's forces had anticipated their return, fortifying Zorath's orbital defenses with syndicate reinforcements, massive dreadnoughts bristling with cannons that could shred their fleet like fleek paper. Drama heightened in waves as enemy volleys streaked toward them, explosions blooming in silent vacuums. "They're locking on!" a Zorathian pilot cried, his voice pitching high in panic. Jake dove for a gunnery station, his fingers flying over unfamiliar controls, muttering, "Okay, point and shoot, how hard can it be? It's like video games, right? Except with actual exploding." But in his haste, he accidentally triggered the shuttle's external speakers, blasting a Terran rock anthem from his personal playlist across the void, a pounding beat that echoed through enemy comms, causing a momentary lull in the chaos as confused voices crackled back. "What sorcery is this? Human war chants?" Elara burst into laughter, the sound cutting through the tension like a laser, but it was awkward too, her hybrid emotions bubbling over. Tears of mirth mixing with adrenaline. "Jake, you've just declared war with music." She pulled him back to the command chair, their bodies colliding in the tight space, her curves pressing against him in a way that was decidedly distracting amid the peril. The crew averted eyes politely, but whispers spread, the hybrid queen and her Terran consort scandalous, yet effective. Jake winked at her, heightening the drama with his unflappable charm. Hey, if it confuses them, it's a win. Besides, nothing says HFY like rocking out while dodging death rays. The fleet emerged from hyperspace into a maelstrom of fire, enemy volleys streaking toward them, explosions blooming in silent vacuums. Enemy fighters swarmed like angry insects, their pilots broadcasting taunts surrender the hybrid freak and her pet monkey. Jake fired back literally with turret blasts, taking down 2 in a row, his human precision shining. Pet monkey? I'll show you bananas! He yelled into the comms, the absurdity drawing groans and grins from the crew. Elara amplified his shots with kinetic bursts, their synergy turning the tide, but awkward situations piled on when her visions hit mid-battle, a flash of Jake in peril, distracting her long enough for a fighter to graze their hull. Sparks flew, systems flickering, and she snapped back, blasting the attacker to debris. Your future's there tangled, she confessed breathlessly, her body leaning on him for support, curves heaving with exertion. The fleet broke through, descending into Zorath's atmosphere amid flaming re-entry trails, but Vexar awaited on the surface, his forces entrenched in the palace grounds. Drama intensified as they landed in a contested zone, ground troops clashing in laser-lit skirmishes. Elara and Jake led the charge, her gown-turned battle attire tearing further, exposing the elegant lines of her form in a way that was both empowering and awkwardly revealing. Jake tossed her his jacket mid-stride, quipping, "Here, for modesty's sake. Can't have the troops distracted by royal assets." She accepted with a wry smile, slipping it on, the oversized fit comical on her slender frame, but it symbolized their union, heightening the emotional stakes. Urban warfare unfolded in the floating cities, bridges of light collapsing under fire, civilians cheering from hiding as the truth broadcast played on massive holoscreens. An awkward highlight came when they cornered a syndicate squad in a crystalline plaza. Elara's powers misfired from overload, creating a gravity bubble that lifted everyone including Jake into a floating tumble. "Whoa, 0G party," he yelped, somersaulting awkwardly, his limbs flailing as he grabbed for her. She dissolved the bubble with a laugh, enemies dropping in heaps, but not before Jake landed on a pile of them, groaning, note to self, no spicy food before anti-grav mishaps. The humor diffused the tension, but drama roared back as Vexar's personal guard ambushed. The Chancellor himself appearing in holographic form, sneering, "You think your mongrel blood saves you? I'll purge the Empire of this taint." The final push to the palace was a gauntlet of traps and betrayals, heightening every step. Elara's hybrid intuition guided them through minefields, but an awkward detonation singed Jake's boot, leaving him hopping comically while firing. "Hot foot, literal hot foot." He joked, but his pain was real. Drawing Elara's concern, she healed him with a touch, her energy flowing intimately, their eyes locking in a charged moment amid gunfire. Allies fell around them, sacrifices that amplified the drama, tears streaking Elara's face as she vowed, "No more losses." Jake pulled her onward, his humor a shield. "Then let's end this clown show." They breached the throne room, the same hall where it all began, now scarred by battle. Vexar stood defiant, his sapphire skin cracked from wounds, surrounded by loyalists. "You hybrid witch," he spat, lunging with his vibrational dagger. Drama climaxed in a whirlwind duel, Elara parrying with force waves, Jake flanking with improvised grenades from palace artifacts. An awkward twist of Vexar slipped on debris, tumbling comically before recovering, snarling, "This is undignified." Jake couldn't resist. "Yeah, villainy 101, watch your step." The fight turned brutal, Vexar grazing Elara's arm, blood now mingled with human red spilling. Jake roared, tackling him, fists flying in raw human fury. Elara joined, her powers pinning the Chancellor, extracting a confession broadcast live, the ancient abductions, the suppressed heritage, all to maintain control. As guards surrendered, drama crested in victory, but awkwardness lingered in the aftermath. Elara collapsing from exhaustion, Jake cradling her, whispering, "You did it, space babe." She smiled weakly, the term baffling yet endearing. With Vexar imprisoned, the Empire began healing, hybrids celebrated as evolution's gift. But personal drama simmered. Elara's visions showed challenges ahead, awkward alliances with Terran federations. Jake's humor lightened it. "So, intergalactic in-laws? Bring it." Hand in hand, they faced the dawn, love's evolution unbreakable. As the first rays of Zorath's twin suns crested the horizon, bathing the scarred throne room in a golden haze that softened the edges of destruction, Elara and Jake stood together at the grand viewport, watching the dawn chase away the shadows of battle. The Empire's healing had begun in earnest, loyal forces securing the palace, civilians emerging from shelters to cheer the broadcasts of truth, and defected fleets standing down across the system. Vexar's confession echoed through every comm channel, a final nail in the coffin of his tyranny, but for Elara, the victory felt deeply personal, her hybrid blood singing with a harmony she'd never known. Jake's arm wrapped around her waist, pulling her close, his jacket still draped over her shoulders like a trophy from their shared chaos, its Terran fabric a comforting reminder of the worlds they'd bridged. The room, once a symbol of isolation and curse, now buzzed with activity as advisors new and old coordinated relief efforts, their voices a murmur of hope rather than conspiracy. Elara turned to Jake, her silver blue eyes reflecting the sunrise, her pointed ears perking up at the distant hum of reconstruction drones. "It's over," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of eons lifted, but laced with a newfound lightness. Her body leaned into his, curves fitting against him as if molded by the stars themselves, the intimacy of their bond a quiet anchor in the whirlwind of change. Jake smiled, that rugged, human grin that had cut through so many dire moments, his hand tracing gentle patterns on her back. "Over. Nah, this is just the sequel hook. But yeah, we kicked some serious cosmic butt." He kissed her forehead, the gesture tender amid the grandeur, drawing a soft laugh from her, a sound that filled him with warmth, reminding him how far they'd come from prisoner and princess to equals in every sense. The awkward echoes of their journey faded, replaced by a profound certainty. Her hybrid revelation had not divided them, but woven their fates tighter, humanity's fire igniting her eternal grace. As the suns climbed higher, casting long beams through the crystalline walls, Elara and Jake slipped away from the bustle, finding solace in a private balcony, overlooking the floating garden's lush expanses of bioluminescent flora that had survived the siege, blooming defiantly. The air was crisp with the scent of renewal, petals unfurling like promises kept. She shed his jacket, letting it pool at their feet, her gown remnants clinging to her form in a way that highlighted her elegant curves, pale skin glowing in the light. "Come," she invited, pulling him to a cushioned ledge where they sat, legs dangling over the void, the wind tousling her white hair. Their conversation flowed like a gentle stream, weaving memories of alcove passions, hyperspace intimacies, and battlefield triumphs into visions of the future. With my human side awakened, Elara mused, her hand on his thigh, a subtle glow emanating from within. "Jake," she said, her voice trembling with joy, "our bond, it's created something new." His eyes widened, the revelation hitting with gentle surprise, a child, hybrid of hybrids, the first bridge between worlds. He pulled her into an embrace, laughter bubbling up. "A little space kid. We're gonna need a bigger ship." The news spread like wildfire, symbolizing the ultimate fusion, humanity's fuck, yet echoing through the stars as proof that love conquered all. Years unfolded in harmony, Zorath thriving as a beacon of unity, alliances spanning the galaxy. Elara and Jake grew old together, her immortality shared through their deepening link, granting him centuries of vitality. Their child, a girl with white hair streaked in earthly brown and ears subtly pointed, embodied hope, playing in gardens where curses once loomed. Adventures continued, exploring uncharted nebulae, mediating interstellar disputes, but always, they returned to each other, bodies and souls intertwined in eternal passion. In quiet moments, gazing at the stars from their balcony, Jake would quip, "Who knew a pint of blood could rewrite the universe?" Elara would smile, her curves nestled against him, and reply, "Not blood, love. Humanity's greatest elixir." And as the twin suns set, painting the sky in hues of promise, their story became legend, a tale of a cosmic princess saved not by might, but by the indomitable heart of a human, proving that in the vastness of space, connection was the true immortality. The Empire endured, but their love was its core, unyielding, passionate, forever. And in the whispers of the cosmic winds, one truth rang clear: humanity, fuck, yeah.